The movie begins in the early 1600s, deep in Japan, where a group of hidden Christians are rounded up by samurai. These villagers are accused of practicing Christianity in secret, and to force them to renounce their faith, the officials subject them to a brutal execution. The men are tied to stakes near hot springs, scalded by the steaming water, their screams echoing across the rocky hills. Watching over this punishment is Father Ferreira, a Portuguese Jesuit missionary who had traveled to Japan years earlier to spread Christianity. His faith is shaken as he witnesses the unimaginable cruelty, his presence looming as a foreshadowing of what's to come. The scene then shifts to Portugal, at the Jesuit college in Macau, where two young priests, Sebastião and Francisco, receive troubling news. A letter arrives stating that their mentor, Father Ferreira, has renounced his faith under torture and is now living in Japan as an apostate. Both Sebastião and Francisco refuse to believe this, convinced that Ferreira would never abandon God, no matter the suffering. Their superior, however, warns them that the persecution of Christians in Japan is harsher than ever, and traveling there would be both dangerous and nearly impossible. Still, the two insist. They believe it's their duty not only to find Ferreira but also to bring comfort to the Japanese Christians who continue to practice their faith in secret. To reach Japan, they must first travel through China. At a port in Macau, they are introduced to a shifty drunken Japanese man named Kishjiro. Though he claims he's not a Christian, he knows the land and agrees to guide them into Japan for passage. His demeanor is cowardly and suspicious, but Rodriguez and Garup have no other option. They entrust themselves to him, despite their unease. Their voyage takes them across treacherous waters, the ship tossed by storms as Kishjiro cowers and mutters to himself. The priests cling to their mission, whispering prayers, holding tightly to their faith even as the reality of their journey begins to sink in. Eventually, they arrive on the shores of Japan under the cover of the mist. The land is silent, damp, and dangerous. Kishjiro leads them cautiously inland, warning them of the local officials who hunt Christians without mercy. As dawn breaks, Rodriguez and Garup are finally greeted by a small group of Japanese villagers. These are the hidden Christians who have risked everything to meet them. Their joy is immediate, their relief overwhelming, as they kneel before the priests, clutching at their robes, begging for blessings and sacraments they have been denied for so long. The villagers hide the priests in their huts, whispering their prayers in secret, terrified of discovery. In the village where they've been taken, the people gather in secret to confess their sins, receive blessings, and hear the prayers that have been forbidden for so long. The priests baptize newborns, bless marriages, and offer communion with whatever little they have. The villagers are overcome with relief, as if their faith has finally been given breath again. For Rodriguez and Garup, it's confirmation that they were right to come. They see themselves as shepherds tending to a flock that has been left to suffer in silence. But the danger is never far. In the early mornings, the villagers post guards to watch for patrols of samurai, since the authorities scour the countryside looking for Christians. Anyone caught helping a priest could face death or worse. The priests live in the shadows, hiding inside huts during the day, only stepping out when it's safe. One day, Rodriguez begins to notice Kishjiro more closely. He keeps to himself, often watching the priests with a guilty expression. Rodriguez suspects he may have once been a Christian and apostatized to survive. His cowardly behavior stands in stark contrast to the devotion of the villagers. Still, they keep him close because they need his guidance in a land they don't understand. Soon, the villagers bring Rodriguez and Garup to a neighboring community, where more hidden Christians wait in secret. Word has spread quickly that real priests have arrived, and the people can hardly believe it. The priests minister to them as well, but every time they reveal themselves, the risk grows. Rodriguez reflects on how pure and steadfast these people's faith is, even though they've been forced into the dirt by persecution. Not long after, the priests are warned that government inspectors are drawing closer to the area. They know if they stay, they'll put the entire village in jeopardy. Reluctantly, they agree to separate. Rodriguez stays with some of the villagers while Garup heads to another community. Their plan is to cover more ground and minister to as many hidden Christians as possible while avoiding detection. But just as the priests feared, their presence soon attracts the attention of the samurai. Word begins to circulate of officials demanding villagers prove their loyalty to the shogunate by stepping on images of Christ or the Virgin Mary, a brutal test designed to flush out believers. The priests know this is only the beginning. After the villagers are forced to step on the images, the tragedy becomes clear. One by one, the faithful refuse to betray Christ, even knowing what awaits them. The guards mark them immediately as Christians. Kishjiro, trembling, spits on the cross instead. His cowardice saves him once again, and the officials set him free while the others are seized and dragged away. At dawn, Rodriguez and Garup hide in the shadows, powerless as their flock is bound to crude wooden crosses planted in the shallows of the sea. The tide slowly rises around their bodies, each wave suffocating them more and more as they struggle to breathe. Rodriguez watches their torment with horror, forced to endure their cries until silence finally swallows them. By morning, only the sea remains, carrying away the faithful who refuse to bend. The weight of this loss drives a wedge between Rodriguez and Garup. They decide to separate, believing it safer to spread out and minister where they can. Garup heads off toward another village, while Rodriguez presses deeper into unknown territory, burdened by grief and exhaustion. When Rodriguez finally stumbles upon a village, he finds nothing but empty huts and silence. He collapses to his knees in despair and begs God for guidance. Alone in a hostile land, he pleads to know what he is meant to do, but only silence answers him. Wandering through the wilderness, he eventually slips down a hill, scraping himself badly. To his surprise, the one who pulls him back up is none other than Kdrama. There, Rodriguez allows Kdrama to tend his wounds, though his anger toward him simmers beneath the surface. He cannot understand why this man keeps circling back into his life, forever betraying and returning, like a wound that won't heal. Kdrama admits he betrayed the priests before, but insists he only does so to survive. He mentions that there is a bounty on Rodriguez's head, the reward enough to tempt anyone. Later, Kdrama offers to guide Rodriguez to a stream to quench his thirst. But as Rodriguez kneels to drink, soldiers emerge from the brush. Kdrama has betrayed him once again. The officials hand Kdrama a pouch of silver coins, his reward for delivering the priest. As Rodriguez is bound, Kdrama stands aside, looking ashamed yet unwilling to resist. Rodriguez is herded into the custody of the guards and led to a group of Christians already imprisoned. To his shock, they sit calmly, speaking of heaven with longing. They tell him they fear no death because in God's kingdom there is no hunger, no pain, only joy. Yet Rodriguez feels terror coil inside him. Their serenity makes him question himself, as if his own faith is being tested more than theirs. The guards separate Rodriguez from the others, keeping him alive while leading the villagers away. Soon, an official confronts him directly, offering him a chance to save himself and the faithful if he will only deny Christ. Rodriguez refuses without hesitation, clinging to the belief that to apostatize would mean eternal damnation. For this, he is locked in a tiny hut, left alone with his doubts and prayers. The next day, he and the others are paraded through towns where Christianity has already been rooted out. The crowds jeer, spit, and curse at them, mocking their foreign god. Eventually, he is brought before a panel of high-ranking officials. They tell him they admire the strength of his faith but insist it has no place in Japan. They argue that they have studied Christianity and found it barren, a foreign weed that cannot take root in their soil. As an example, the guards bring out the imprisoned villagers and offer them freedom, if they will only trample the image of Christ and Mary. One by one, the villagers refuse, clinging to their faith even as death looms. They are led back to their cells, but one man is dragged forward and executed before everyone's eyes, his body falling lifeless to the ground. To break Rodriguez's spirit further, they summon Kdrama again. With trembling hands, he steps onto the images of Christ and Mary, showing just how easy it is to escape. His cowardice, his betrayal, fills Rodriguez with anger and despair. The following day, Rodriguez is marched to the shore. There, he sees Garup helpless as a group of Christians are bound and cast into the sea. The waves close over their heads while Garup fights against the guards, desperate to save them. Rodriguez cries out, watching in anguish as his fellow priest and the believers drown, unable to do anything but bear witness to their suffering. The next morning, Rodriguez is escorted to a temple under heavy guard. He expects interrogation, perhaps more humiliation, but what he sees leaves him shaken. He sees Father Ferreira, walking towards him. But Ferreira will not even meet his eyes. His face is heavy with shame. When they finally speak, Ferreira confesses the truth. He was tortured relentlessly, day and night, until his body broke and his mind could no longer endure the agony. In the end, he stepped on the fumi-e, the carved image of Christ, and publicly denounced the Lord. Rodriguez listens in silence, his heart burning with disappointment. The man he thought would be a guiding light has become living proof of betrayal. Ferreira explains that his role now is to persuade Rodriguez to do the same. He insists that Rodriguez's faith is futile, that Christianity cannot survive in Japan. Rodriguez refuses to listen. He argues that the deaths of the faithful must not be in vain. But Ferreira counters with words that cut deep. Those Christians did not die for Christ, he says, but for Rodriguez, because he told them to hold firm. Their blood is on his hands. Rodriguez recoils, rejecting the idea, unwilling to let go of the meaning behind their sacrifice. When the argument ends in silence, Ferreira simply rises and leaves him to wrestle with his own torment. That night, Rodriguez is dragged outside and forced to watch. One by one, Japanese Christians are tortured in ways meant to prolong suffering rather than end it quickly. Their cries echo in the dark, and Rodriguez trembles, powerless to stop it. Standing at his side, Ferreira leans in and tells him there is one way to end it: step on the image of Christ and denounce his faith. The officials place the carved image before him. Rodriguez hesitates, staring at it as if the weight of the world rests on that single choice. In his heart, he hears the screams of the dying. He feels their suffering as his own. His spirit shatters under the burden. Finally, with tears streaming down his face, he lowers his foot and presses it onto the image of Christ. In that moment, the guards stop the torture, releasing the Christians. Years pass. Rodriguez and Ferreira now live under Japanese rule, their roles twisted into enforcers of suppression. Their task is to inspect goods arriving from trade ships, ensuring no artifacts carry Christian symbols or teachings. They strip the faith from objects just as it was stripped from themselves. One day, an official informs Rodriguez of a new custom he must fulfill. A town official has died, and Rodriguez is expected to assume his name, his wife, and his family, as is the way of Japan. Rodriguez accepts without resistance. 10 years later, Rodriguez has mastered Japanese and lives fully in this adopted identity, outwardly faithless. Kishijiro, the coward who betrayed him countless times, now works under him. Despite everything, Kishijiro kneels before Rodriguez, addressing him still as father. He begs for confession, desperate for forgiveness yet again. Rodriguez protests, reminding him that he is denounced, that he is no priest anymore. But inside, something stirs. Despite every attempt to silence it, the spirit of his calling refuses to die. Against his will, he hears Kishijiro's confession, because he cannot ignore the pull of his faith. Rodriguez leaves out his days in Japan, a man broken in public yet clinging to an ember of belief in secret. When death finally comes, it finds him in silence, his body cremated according to Japanese custom. But within the ashes, clutched in his hands, lies a small crucifix hidden against his chest, the symbol of a faith he outwardly betrayed but inwardly could never let go. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe for more notifications. Until next time. See you soon.